Deadspin, those liberal media hacks over at that website we thought was already defunct, they're trying to ruin a little kid's life. And they're lying about him, saying that he was wearing blackface. Of course, he wasn't. We'll give you all the details and we'll give you a little education about what blackface really looks like. Also, speaking of education, Joe Biden has a Secretary of Education who doesn't really know much about history or I think anything else. And he also has a Secretary of Homeland Security who has a brilliant idea on what to do with all the illegal immigrants that he's allowed into this country in the last 3 years. You guessed it. He wants them all to vote. Amnesty for all. Who saw this coming? We did. And so did you. That's why you watch us every day. We're live. Let's get going. It's our brand new Tuesday show brought to you by the Electronic Payments Coalition. Hey there, Larry O'Connor here, and it's time to plow through the latest outrage from the media. And this one, well, it's pretty damning because it involves a child. Here's Deadspin, which literally I had no idea still existed. Didn't they go bankrupt like a couple of times already? Deadspin put out this article. The NFL needs to speak out against the Kansas City Chiefs fan in blackface, native headdress. Now, they're already trying to cancel any team that honors Native Americans, American Indians. The Redskins, of course, our team here in Washington, D.C., was forced to change their name to the Commanders, which nobody likes. And they're trying to change the name of the Chiefs. But thankfully, the Kansas City Chiefs have held firm and they haven't bowed under pressure. But Lord knows they're trying to. And here's Deadspin with this article focusing on, see, this is the problem. Anyone who dresses up like an Indian and roots for the Chiefs, they're racist. Look at this kid in his blackface. Although you notice, they just describe this person as a fan. But you look at him, he's what, 8 years old? 10 years old? But even worse, when you take a look at this kid from a different angle, he's not wearing blackface at all. That's the classic look that fans do when they put face paint on to root for their team. And of course, the Kansas City Chiefs colors are red and gold with black trim. So he's just sort of harmonizing the whole look there as he roots for his team. And can I repeat again? He's a kid. He's a little kid. And Deadspin went on an all-out jihad against him yesterday. If this sounds familiar, the media tried to do this to this kid, Nick Sandmann, when he was 16 years old, wearing a MAGA hat at the March for Life. You know, how dare he wear a hat wanting to make America great again and then march on behalf of unborn children to try to keep them from being killed. But you'll remember this confrontation with a Native American there. The media tried to ruin his life by saying that he was smirking and confronting this Native American dude when it turns out it was the opposite. The Indian guy actually confronted poor Nick Sandmann and got right up in his face. And here's a 16-year-old kid just awkwardly smiling, trying to deal with the situation. Now, he sued CNN and the Washington Post and several other media outlets that lied about him. And I hope the parents of this young child, they contact Nick Sandmann's family and find out who the lawyers were, because he's got a lawsuit. It's outrageous. It's disgusting. It's despicable. And also, by the way, it's ignorant. I mean, come on, Deadspin. That's not what blackface looks like. This is what blackface looks like. Now, that's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And he's, well, there's no way, the other way to put it. He's wearing blackface. And if that isn't enough, this is also what blackface looks like. That's Joy Behar, of course, in her Halloween costume, in blackface. You still don't get it, Deadspin? All you left-wing liberal media hacks out there who like to try to ruin people's lives by claiming they're in blackface? All right, you need more of an education. Here, this is what blackface looks like. That's your pal, your hero, Jimmy Kimmel, on a regular basis appeared in blackface on his old TV show. Get it now? No, you're still confused? That's Howard Stern. That's Howard Stern in blackface. Oh, you love him now. You love Howard Stern now because he criticizes Republicans and conservatives and Trump, but that's him in blackface. Seriously, you still don't understand the difference here? All right, let me just one last time, okay? Just to be clear, that's not blackface. And that is blackface. That'd be Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia. You loved him too. He's a hero. Great champion of the left. That's what blackface looks like. Get it through your skulls, please. Strange, you know. We had this article and all this hoopla and all these attempts to destroy this little, 8, 9, 10-year-old boy's life for not being in blackface there, rooting for his team, the Kansas City Chiefs. And yet, from Pierre Trudeau, or Justin Trudeau, to Joy Behar, to Jimmy Kimmel, to Ralph Northam, to Howard Stern, and on and on and on. We have all these examples of blackface. And I don't remember a lot of articles being written by these same hacks trying to ruin their lives. I wonder why. Why haven't people tried to ruin Justin Trudeau's career? I just, one of those strange things that we'll never really know for sure. Let's take a minute to talk about our great friends at Electronic Payments Coalition and their plea to you to get involved in the Stop the Big Box Bait and Switch effort. Go to stopthebigboxbaitandswitch.com and educate yourself on this bill that they're trying to push through Congress right now. It's all smoke and mirrors. They're trying to tell you that this is going to make things more secure for your credit card transactions. It's a lie. They tried to do this with debit card transactions years ago. It was called the Durbin Amendment. And all it did was make big companies richer. And it made small companies have to spend a lot more money for their debit card transactions. And any savings that we were told you would get, actually, the big companies kept them, never lowered prices in any way whatsoever. In fact, in some cases, prices went up. They're trying to do the same thing. This is going to help Target. It's going to help Walmart. It's going to help all the big box stores. And it's going to hurt mom and pop shops. So go to stopthebigboxbaitandswitch.com, learn about this bill, and then most importantly, use the form that they've got on there to email your congressman and senator so we can stop this thing in its tracks. All right, we had really good news yesterday where finally we had an American hostage released from the Hamas terrorists. And isn't she cute? Absolutely darling. It's disgusting if you think about the fact that these cold-blooded terrorists are holding a beautiful little innocent 4-year-old girl like this, but they have been. In fact, they've got a couple of babies, infants right now that they still haven't released. But after 3 hostage releases, finally we had one of American citizenship released. Her name is Abigail Moore Eden, and she is the youngest of the U.S. citizens. She has dual citizenship. Now, our friend Matt Vespa over at Town Hall has the story here, and one part of the way CBS wrote up the story really stuck out. You'll see right here, Abigail's great aunt, Liz Hirsch Naftali, and her cousin, Noah Naftali, said in a statement Sunday, "We hoped and prayed today would come. There are no words to express our relief and gratitude that Abigail is safe." And that's wonderful. It's great. It's fantastic. Of course, it's the great aunt and cousin there to greet this little girl because her parents were slaughtered by the terrorists. Awful, awful story. Horrible. And we want every single hostage to be released. Our president and our State Department should be working tirelessly every second of the day to get every single hostage released. Let's just say that flat out. And we're thrilled that this little girl is out. But there's more to this story. There's more to this story that you need to know about. Because as you see from the headline from Matt Vespa's article at Town Hall, the family of the first American released by Hamas also bought Hunter Biden's art. This is unbelievable. And if it's a coincidence, boy, howdy, it's one of the strangest coincidences you'll ever see. The independent investigative reporter Benjamin Weingarten actually saw that name stick out and said, hold on a minute, the name of the great aunt. He says, you're telling me that the great aunt of the youngest American hostage and first American released by Hamas is a buyer of Hunter Biden's art, who was also appointed by Joe Biden to the U.S. Commission of the Preservation of America's Heritage Board. You probably saw this story a while back, where just so happens that somebody who got this really Tony cool, cushy presidential appointment also happened to be one of the people who bought Hunter Biden's crack-filled, art-frenzied paint splashed against a canvas. Now you can give me your hundreds of thousands of dollars under the table and no one will be the wiser for it. Artwork. That's right. Now you'll remember that the Hunter Biden artwork basically appears to be a scheme to continue to funnel money to Hunter Biden and the Biden family without having to actually buy access to Joe Biden officially, as it was done for 8 years when he was vice president, allegedly. We'll let the Judiciary and Oversight Committee handle that from this point forward. But it sure appeared that instead of selling access and meetings and dinners and other things that the big guy could deliver, instead now just buy art from Hunter. And the White House was not involved in it. There's no ethical challenges or investigations because, listen, the president's son, he has the right to make money however he wants. He's an artist after all. Is he? Have you seen his art? Yeah. So Ben Weingarten, he investigates this and he pulled up an original article written in Business Insider. And let me just blow it up here for you so you can see it. Buyer of Hunter Biden's artwork is Elizabeth Hirsch Naftali, a Los Angeles real estate investor and philanthropist. Hirsch Naftali is influential in California Democratic circles and a significant Democratic donor. Gave $13,000 to the Biden campaign, $29,000 to the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee this year. And she hosted a fundraiser for Vice President Kamala Harris. Now, just connect the dots here. This person decides that she, after giving so much money to Joe Biden and then getting an appointment to a commission, decides to buy art from, not some actual famous artist, not an actual artist, not a Picasso, not a Rembrandt, not even, some sort of Warhol situation. Nope. I want to make an art investment in Hunter Biden's art, the crackhead who's probably going to jail. And then it turns out that out of the 9 or 10, they still won't give us a firm number on how many Americans are being held over there. But out of all of the people who are being held, citizenship, the one person that gets released also just happens to be related to the 1 in a million shot woman who happened to buy Hunter Biden's art. Now, I'm sure it's just a coincidence. I'm sure that this isn't pay for play. I'm sure this isn't corruption. I'm sure this isn't quid pro quo. I'm sure that Joe Biden said, listen, I don't care about the other hostages. Just make sure this one comes out because this is a big donor. I'm sure none of that happened. Aren't you? That's right. We're sure none of that happened. But here's the thing. This is why we don't want a corrupt president. This is why we don't want corrupt people in the president's family. This is why we don't want the president's son and brother and every other family member getting money from nefarious avenues funneled to him for God knows what, from corrupt countries like China and Kazakhstan and Russia and Ukraine. This is why it's a bad thing, because then when something very innocent, very wonderful, like the release of an American hostage, a little 4-year-old girl, when something like this happens, we don't want to have it sullied and stained by the stench of political corruption, which this is. This is why you don't want your president to be corrupt, because then everything he does seems like it's corrupt. Everything like keeping our border open for the last 3 years. By some estimates, over 8, maybe closer to 10 million illegal aliens have flooded across the border, either through points of entry or outside of the points of entry. We don't know. We literally have no idea. By the official records, it's close to 8 million, or a little over 8 million illegal immigrants. And it's all been under this man's watch, the Secretary of Homeland Security, as if we have Homeland Security at this point on his watch. Now, the Republicans in the House have threatened to bring articles of impeachment against them. They might do it sooner rather than later. He continues to lie under oath, saying that the border is secure. And of course, we know otherwise. But yesterday, a journalist asked him the most important question that really hasn't been asked during all of the congressional testimonies that he's participated in. The only question that matters: what are we going to do with all these people? The millions and millions and millions of people who have entered this country illegally, who you claim will have a hearing for their asylum, and if it's denied by a court, they'll be deported. They'll make me laugh. What are we going to do with them? And he gave his answer.
It also doesn't address the other sort of elephant in the room, which is dealing with the undocumented immigrants who are already here in the nation. And I know it's been a political football as to trying to figure out the best way to address that. But I'm going to ask you, what is the best way to address that from your perspective?
The answer is quite clear and quite straightforward, and we've been waiting for it for about 30 years. And that is to fix a system that everyone agrees is fundamentally broken, and we need congressional action, both for the lawful pathways that really need to be more robust in statute, and for the 12 million people who are here in the United States who have been contributing so fundamentally to our country's well-being. They're our neighbors, our friends, our fellow congregants. They provide our frontline workers. We need to do something, and I am hopeful and remain hopeful that Congress will do it. The president, on his first day in office, presented Congress with a proposal.
Yeah, so it's funny how he began that whole thing by saying it's very clear what needs to be done. Remember the beginning part of this answer when he said it was very clear?
The answer is quite clear.
Yeah, it's quite clear, but he never actually came out and said it, did he? He danced around it and talked around it. If it's so clear, just say the word. Say the word, dude. Amnesty. That's what he said. Oh, we have to do something for them. The president proposed something for them on day one. They're our neighbors. They're hardworking. They're members of our society. So something needs to be done. What's the something if it's so clear? Amnesty. 8, 10, 11 million, 12 million added to the 10, 12, 15 million who were already here before they took office. And they want to give them amnesty. Amnesty means citizenship. Amnesty means they're voters. And that's really what this has all been all about, hasn't it? When you live in Washington, D.C., you're used to cynicism. You're used to lying. You're used to obfuscation. But this guy takes the cake. And it's so obvious what's been going on here. And listen to this part, because this is, frankly, the most outrageous part of the entire answer.
And quite straightforward, and we've been waiting for it for about 30 years.
We've been waiting for it for about 30 years. So let's do the math. We've been waiting for it since 1993. Since 1993, they've been waiting for so-called immigration reform, which really means amnesty for illegal immigrants. 1993. Now, here's the interesting thing. We're going to have a lot of history lessons in the show today. We've got another one coming up with the Secretary of Education, because he doesn't know a whole lot about history, especially when it relates to Ronald Reagan. We do. So here's a history lesson for Secretary Mayorkas. And for those of you who don't know, 1993 is just 6 years after 1987, when Ronald Reagan was president. And what did Ronald Reagan do in 1987? He was dragged, kicking and screaming, with a gun against his head to sign an amnesty bill. That's right. He signed an amnesty bill into law in 1987 that granted sweeping amnesty for any illegal immigrant in this country in 1987. And the deal that he agreed to, the only reason that he would even sign that bill, and boy, did he regret it afterwards, he agreed to that bill and signing it into law under one condition, and that was, this is it, it's over, the last amnesty, no questions asked, and now we build a wall and secure our border. There will be no more illegal immigrants coming into this country. We'll enforce the law. Anyone caught coming into the country illegally is apprehended and immediately deported. That's the only way that Ronald Reagan would sign that 1987 bill granting amnesty. And now here's Mayorkas, one of the Democrats who helped convince Reagan of that. I mean, he wasn't personally one of the Democrats, but it's his party, and it's all his pals. They all said to Reagan, yes, 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 give us amnesty now. We'll secure the border. No more illegal immigration. We're going to take it seriously now, but we got to do something about the people that are here, because they're our neighbors and they're a part of our society, and they're our friends' kids and our kids' friends in school. So let's fix it. We don't want to be mean to them. Let's not be racist. Oh, all right, fine. Amnesty, fine. But secure the border from this point forward. And here's Mayorkas admitting that only 6 years later, they already had the problem again. We've been wanting to give amnesty to these people for 30 years. It's his job to secure the border. The laws are there right now. Want me to prove that the laws are there right now? Because When he became Secretary of Homeland Security and he was in charge of the border, he inherited what Donald Trump had done with the border, where crossings were down to, a couple thousand compared to literally a couple of million now. And not one law was changed. Let me repeat that. Between the Trump presidency and the Biden presidency, not one law was written, voted on, passed, and signed with regard to the border or with regard to immigration. The law is exactly the same today as it was on the last day of Donald Trump's presidency. The only difference is this guy and his boss refused to follow the law. That's the only difference. And now you know what the end game is. Now we got all these millions of people in the country, and the only thing to do with it is to give them amnesty and give them citizenship, and hopefully they'll vote in time in the next election. Oh, who are we kidding? Come on. They're already voting in our elections. And as if that wasn't a bad enough representation yesterday of the Biden administration cabinet, how about this guy, Miguel Cardona, the education secretary? Our own Kevin McMahon here at Town Hall dug up a video of him appearing before a bunch of governors a couple of weeks ago, and he dropped this little tidbit.
We're going to set up follow-up calls with every governor we met with to make sure we're available. As I think it was President Reagan said, we're from the government. We're here to help. Does
that sound like Ronald Reagan to you? Yeah, Ronald Reagan, big fat of the government. Like Ronald Reagan always said, we're from the government and we're here to help. Ronald Reagan didn't say that. I mean, he kind of said it, but he didn't mean what Miguel Cardona is trying to convey. Here is the great job put together by the Republican National Committee yesterday. They did a little side-by-side comparison. Maybe you can tell the difference between what Miguel Cardona said and what Ronald Reagan actually said.
We're going to set up follow-up calls with every governor we met with to make sure we're available. As I think it was President Reagan said, we're from the government. We're here to help.
I think you all know that I've always felt the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
So close. I mean, he did quote him accurately, I suppose. He just left a little bit out. Selective editing. It would be funny if it weren't so terrifying that this guy is literally responsible for the federal department that educates the children in this country. So he's either a liar or he's a moron. Or both. Let's go with both. Our friend Scott Walker, Governor Scott Walker, formerly the governor of Wisconsin and now in charge of the Young America's Foundation, he said, well, he quoted Reagan himself on this one and said, well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant, it's that they know so much that isn't so. It's another great Reaganism, too. This is unbelievable, but frankly, completely believable and par for the course for the Biden administration. Isn't it great to have the grown-ups back in charge? So CBS and the liberal media in general has now found a newfound love and adoration for Mitt Romney. Now, I want you to see this clip that's going around. This is an interview with Nora O'Donnell there. And he was specifically asked about who he plans to vote for.
Who do you like in the Republican field?
Anybody. I'd be happy to support virtually any one of the Republicans, maybe not Vivek, but the others that are running would be acceptable to me, and I'd be happy to vote for them. I'd be happy to vote for a number of the Democrats too. I mean, would be an upgrade from, in my opinion, from Donald Trump.
So let me I'm gonna let you finish there, Mitt Romney, but isn't this just classic Romney? This is the biggest problem with Romney. He's asked, who do you like? Oh, anybody. Any of the Republicans. In fact, any of the Democrats, too. Okay, I got a follow-up question. What do you believe? What do you stand for? What are your principles? Seriously, who in this day and age could say, you know what? Republicans, Democrats, no big difference, really. Honestly, I can vote for any of them as long as they're not Trump. or Vivek Ramaswamy. They're the problem. That's issue number one. And by the way, this is classic Romney. Who do you like? Oh, any of the Republicans, just not Trump and Vivek. Well, there's only two others. You want to flip a coin? Who do you like? Anybody but Vivek and Trump. Okay, so that means Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis. How about committing? All right, so there's that. But also, who here, seriously, who here can say, objectively speaking, that Biden is an upgrade from Donald Trump? Because we've actually lived through 3 years of Joe Biden. And we lived through 4 years of Donald Trump. The only reason why you can stare Norah O'Donnell in the face with a straight face and say that Joe Biden is better than Donald Trump is if, number one, you're rich enough not to care. And number two, you have a thing about Donald Trump that transcends logic and transcends basic understanding and intelligence and principles about what this country is supposed to be doing and what the role of our government is. But he goes on.
And perhaps also from Joe Biden. Look, I like President Biden. I find him a very charming, engaging person. There's some places I agree with him, but
he's super charming and engaging when he's calling his political opponents fascists. By the way, Mitt, do you remember how charming and engaging Joe Biden was when he said during the 2012 presidential election that you wanted to put black people in chains? Mitt, do you remember that? Was that charming and engaging? Am I the only one who... Why am I angrier about how Joe Biden treated Mitt Romney than Mitt Romney is? Oh, and one other thing, beyond Romney, because listen, honestly, I don't expect much more from Mitt Romney at this point. But the media is going nuts with this. They're so happy. They're so excited. They're loving the fact that Mitt Romney said that he'll vote for anybody except Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump. Hey, media, you called this guy a racist, sexist, homophobe, uncaring, out of touch, multi-billionaire who probably killed people by not giving them health care when he was in charge of their companies. Remember that? I do. You hated this guy. You couldn't find enough hit pieces to run on him. Remember Binders Full of Women? Remember that? Now, what's changed? It's the same guy. But now you love him. Now they can't wait to tell you, this is what we've all been waiting for. Here's who Mitt Romney will vote for. Why do you care? Why do you care what a racist, sexist, homophobe who kills people, an uncaring billionaire, why do you care who he's going to vote for? The only thing that's changed from 2012 to now is that Mitt Romney doesn't like Donald Trump. And therefore, we've got to hang on his every word. Well, let's take a look a little bit at the man who Mitt Romney thinks is a charming, affable fellow and is much better than Donald Trump. Here he was yesterday giving some remarks about the economy. He had a big sign behind him, by the way, Bidenomics. So let's take a look at Bidenomics for a bit, shall we?
When it comes down to supply chains, did you ever think we'd be talking this much about supply chains? No, but I'm serious. It's critical. Everybody's beginning to figure it out. The average person knows what we're talking about when we talk about supply chains.
The average person, he really thinks you're as stupid as he is. Joe Biden thinks you're as stupid and as out of touch as he is. The average person doesn't know anything about supply chains. No, actually, Mr. President, the average person hasn't spent 50 years in a bubble in Washington, D.C. as a senator and a vice president, and now as a president. No. The average person actually works in the real world, works in the business world, works in retail, and knows full well what a supply chain is. We just didn't talk about it much because it wasn't screwed up before you were president. There's more.
In fact, as a share of earnings this Thanksgiving, dinner was the 4th cheapest ever on record. I want you all to know that. I look at all the press, look at that.
Yeah, you can tell he's lying when he starts to laugh at himself. He even couldn't keep a straight face. The 4th cheapest Thanksgiving on record? So like 100 years ago, it was more expensive to put together a Thanksgiving dinner. What was that caveat he put in there?
In fact, as a share of earnings this Thanksgiving,
As a share of earnings, this is the fourth inexpensive Thanksgiving on record. As a share of earnings. Quick follow-up, Mr. President. What does that mean? Can you tell us what that means? As a share of earnings. Take your time. That's what I thought.
fortunately, we've been able to push back on MAGA Republicans so far.
Not just Republicans, but MAGA Republicans. He's a affable, kind fellow, isn't he? He's a uniter. He's trying to cut through all of the acrimony in the country. Remember his message to Al Roker during the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade? We've got to stop all the vitriol in this country and remember what we all have in common. And here we are, what, 4 days later? Oh, MAGA Republicans.
Haven't given up. They haven't given up. They still want to undo this progress we're making. They're proposing cuts in investments in roads, bridges, the internet, and high-speed internet, the very things that provided from anyway. It's across the board.
Anyway, that's what he says when he can't read his teleprompter anymore. Yeah, MAGA Republicans are trying to cut the internet. Investments in roads, investments in infrastructure. So when a Democrat says investments, what they mean is big government spending. It's not an investment. You know what an investment is. It's when you actually, buy a share in something and invest it and you get a return on it. It's big government spending, number one. Number two, I wish Republicans were actually proposing cuts in those things. They're not. They're just saying, hey, let's not spend quite as much as we did last year. We're still going to spend more, but instead of a 20% increase, how about an 18% increase? That's a cut, you MAGA Republicans. I'd also love to ask Joe Biden, can you tell me who is not a MAGA Republican? Because he tries to make that distinction. Oh, not all Republicans are bad, just MAGA Republicans. Really? Let me answer the question for you, by the way. You know what a MAGA Republican is in his mind? It's a Republican who wins. That's a MAGA Republican.
And wages for working families have gone up while inflation has come down 65%. And wages
Did you catch that? One more time.
for working families have gone up while inflation has come down 65%.
Wages have gone up for working families while inflation has come down 65%. Thanks to our friends over at the Republican National Committee research arm. Prices have actually gone up 17.6% since Biden took office. Real wages have declined by 3%. Wages for working families haven't gone up. And if inflation has come down at all, it's only come down from last year's astronomical through the roof numbers, not from when he started in the White House. Which brings us to a Caron Jean-Pierre. That's the correct Haitian pronunciation. Caron Jean-Pierre. Peter Ducey asked her about the economy because they keep saying, gosh, this was the cheapest Thanksgiving we've ever. How cheap was your Thanksgiving this year? I got a better question for you. What did you not buy this year for Thanksgiving that you usually do? I'll go first. We didn't get a turkey this year. We had 2 chickens. I mean, it was good. It was delicious. I'm a great chef. But we didn't get a turkey because it was cheaper to get 2 chickens. So Peter Ducey says, most Americans aren't feeling this. What's the deal?
On lowering prices, you said earlier that the actions the president has taken have worked. So is it your sense that when people were home for Thanksgiving, catching up with their family members, they were saying to each other, can you believe how much more affordable things have gotten?
So, all right. Now, I just want to preface her answer real fast because Peter's got charm and flair there. But let me boil down the question. You keep saying the economy's better and prices are lower. So are you thinking that the American consumer right now is feeling that? Because poll after poll after poll says they're not. So why do you keep saying prices are lower when the American consumer is spending more on the basic necessities? It's a legitimate question. Another way to ask it is, why are you lying about the numbers? Listen to her answer.
Honestly, I wouldn't. I hear the question, but I want to make sure this is very clear. We take that very seriously. We take what families, the decisions that they make at their kitchen table, whether it's during Thanksgiving or whether it is every month as they're trying to make hard decisions about how they move forward with taking care of their family. We take that very seriously. It's not a joke to us. It is important to us. This is the president who talks about it in a very personal way when he talks about what families have to go through, working families, middle-class families.
Can I jump in here? I mean, she's acting like, oh, our heart aches for people making these tough decisions around their kitchen table. We feel the pain of working class. What are you talking about? I thought everything was great. I thought Bidenomics was working. I thought we were better off than we've ever been. So what's all this pain and heartache and tough choices everybody was making? We just saw Joe Biden say that wages for working families have gone up and inflation has come down 65%. This should be happy times are here again. So what is all of this about? Oh, we understand. We take this very serious. You can't have it both ways, dear.
And that's why he's taking actions that he has. And so, look, the fact is, the data shows that the economy is improving. The data shows that households remain in a strong financial position. Household wealth is at a record high, with lower income households seeing the largest gain since the pandemic. Those are indeed what we're seeing. But we don't take lightly. We do not take lightly what Americans and families continue to feel. That's why the president at 2:00 is going to talk about what the actions that he's taking to continue to lower costs.
Now, let me unpack that for you. She just said, the economy is better. It's stronger. It's greater. We're in a wonderful economy here. It's just obvious. The data shows it. And if people don't feel that, if they're experiencing that the economy isn't that great, well, we feel your pain and we understand it. We're sympathetic to you. But, you're wrong. There's no two ways about it. Now, Ducey follows up and says, well, hold on a minute. You can't have it both ways, as I just said. If people are feeling the pinch, well, what's your explanation?
But why do you think it is that when you say the economy is improving and President Biden says the economy is improving, that a majority of Americans outside of this building are not buying it?
So,
what do you think the answer is? It's a great, Ducey has backed her into a corner. So you're saying the economy is great. The American people aren't feeling it. And you're claiming that you feel the pain of the American people, even though they shouldn't be feeling any pain, because you're telling us the economy is so great. So how do you work this out? Why are people still feeling like the economy is in the toilet? And what the answer is, I'm going to let her. I want to tell you first, though. I'm going to tell you first. Guess what the answer is? Trump. It's Trump's fault.
here's the thing. When we walked into this administration, the economy was on a tailspin. That is the fact. Because of the last administration, because of the Trump administration, because of how they dealt with COVID and the pandemic, because they didn't have a comprehensive plan. The president came in, he passed the American Rescue Plan, which was able to get the economy back on its feet, which was able to open up small businesses. Small businesses were able to open up. Schools were able to open up. And we understand what Americans have been feeling over the last 2-3 years. It's going to take some time. We get that. It's going to take some time, but it does not take away how we have seen the economy getting back on its feet. We actually had to fix the problem that we saw that the last administration left us.
You know, there's an old saying that there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. We're going to have to add to that. There's lies, there's damn lies, there's statistics, and then there's anything that the Biden White House tells you. That's it for today, but I neglected one thing yesterday, and I forgot to say it, and I have to remember to say it now. How great was that Michigan win over Ohio State? Right? Was that not brilliant? If you've seen Hugh Hewitt anywhere on social media, on Twitter, you know, our old friend Hugh Hewitt, we interviewed him right before the debate. Remember, he was one of the moderators of the debate. Great guy. He's a big Ohio State fan. I'm a big Michigan fan. This is the third year in a row. You should go reach out to him on the X.com platform there. Just remind him about how Ohio State did and how Michigan did for the third year in a row. I'm so sorry for forgetting that yesterday. We had a lot to get to, but now I just wanted to remember that. Go Blue. That's it today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next time. In the meantime, I'm Larry O'Connor. call me Larry.